Separation of powers, danger of tyranny, encroachments occurring right in front of our eyes. The situation. Separation of powers was extremely important to the Founding Fathers for preventing tyrannical government. The writings of Montesquieu, the Federalist Papers, and the state constitutions will reveal the intention and reason for the separation of powers. This evidence reveals that we have derailed in this matter and need to correct course. John Quincy Adams stated, "At the time of the Declaration of Independence, Montesquieu was one of the most recent and esteemed writers upon government, and he had shown the division of powers to be essentially necessary to the preservation of liberty." So this is taken from the writings of Montesquieu in the Spirit of Laws, Volume 1, Chapter 6. When the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person or in the same body of magistrates, there can be no liberty, because apprehensions may arise lest the same monarch or senate should enact tyrannical laws to execute them in a tyrannical manner. And this continues regarding no liberty. Again, there is no liberty if the judiciary power be not separated from the legislative and executive. Were it joined with the legislative, the life and liberty of the subject would be exposed to arbitrary control, for the judge would be then the legislator. Were it joined to the executive power, the judge might behave with violence and oppression. This is Montesquieu continued into everything. There would be an end of everything, were the same man or the same body, whether of the nobles or of the people, to exercise those three powers, that of enacting laws, that of executing the public resolutions, and of trying the causes of individuals. So you can see here where they have gotten this idea from the writings of Montesquieu. This is taken from the Federalist Paper number 47, and Madison was the author. It states, "It will be proper to investigate the sense in which the preservation of liberty requires that the three great departments of power should be separate and distinct. The oracle who is always consulted and cited on this subject is the celebrated Montesquieu. If he be not the author of this invaluable precept in the science of politics, he has the merit at least of displaying and recommending it most effectually to the attention of mankind." The Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers inform and educate the people regarding the proposed federal constitution. The fundamental principles explain the intention of design on the various operations of government in states and the newly proposed federal government at that time. Publishing of the papers occurred between 1787 to 1788. The Federalist Papers stand as the first authoritative interpretation of the Constitution and have been used to settle constitutional questions. Judiciary Branch was intended to be the weakest. This is taken from Federalist Paper number 78, and Hamilton was the author. It states, "The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction either of the strength or of the wealth of the society, and can take no active resolution whatever. It may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend upon the aid of the executive arm even for the efficacy of its judgments. And efficacy means power to produce results." Federalist Paper number 78 continued. "It proves incontestably that the judiciary is beyond comparison the weakest of the three departments of power. It equally proves that though individual oppression may now and then proceed from the courts of justice, the general liberty of the people can never be endangered from that quarter. I mean, so long as the judiciary remains truly distinct from both the legislature and the executive. For I agree that there is no liberty if the power of judging be not separated from the legislative and executive powers. And it proves in the last place that as liberty can have nothing to fear from the judiciary alone, but would have everything to fear from its union with either of the other departments." And this was quoted from Montesquieu, Spirit of Laws, Volume 1, where you see the number 1 and number 2 there. So let's see what was stated in our state constitutions. This is from the South Carolina Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, entitled Separation of Powers. "In the government of this state, The legislative, executive, and judicial powers of the government shall be, and shall means it's mandatory, forever separate and distinct from each other, and no person or persons exercising the functions of one of said departments shall assume or discharge the duties of any other. This is from the New Hampshire Constitution, Part the First, Article 37, Separation of Powers. In the government of this state, the three essential powers thereof, to wit, the legislative, executive, and judicial, ought to be kept as separate from and independent of each other as the nature of a free government will admit, or as is consistent with that chain of connection that binds the whole fabric of the Constitution in one indissoluble bond of union and amity. And the North Carolina Constitution states, Article 1, Section 6, Separation of Powers. The legislative, executive, and supreme judicial powers of the state government shall be, which again means must, forever separate and distinct from each other. And separate means to disunite, to divide, to sever, to part, in almost any manner, either things naturally or casually joined, unconnected, not united, distinct, used of things that have not been connected. And distinct means different, separate, not the same in number or kind, as he holds two distinct offices. He is known by distinct titles, so separated as not to be confounded with any other thing, clear, not confused. And those definitions were taken from Noah Webster's Dictionary, 1828. Let's see what the Founding Fathers stated regarding the state constitutions in the Federalist Paper on Separation of Power. This is taken from the Federalist Paper number 81. These considerations teach us to applaud the wisdom of those states who have committed the judicial power in the last resort not to a part of the legislature, but to distinct and independent bodies of men. Officers of the court. Lawyers and attorneys are officers of the court. This is from the American Bar Association website. The lawyers for both sides are also officers of the court. Their job is to represent their clients zealously within the formal rules of the Code of Professional Conduct. The belief is that justice can best be achieved if each side's case is vigorously presented by competent legal counsel. And from the Cornell Law School website, under Officer of the Court, definitions from Nola's Plain English Law Dictionary. Any person who has an obligation to promote justice and uphold the law, including judges, clerks, court personnel, police officers, and attorneys who must be truthful in court and obey court rules. So attorneys are considered to be officers of the court. Bar associations. Each state handles the bar association and its members differently. There are many states where membership in the bar association is mandatory for lawyers. Look up your state's codes to see what it says about lawyers, attorneys, and the bar association. Some are voluntary memberships, many are mandatory. This is an example from the Texas Constitution. This is from their Article 2, Section 1, Division of Powers, 3 separate departments, exercise of power properly attached to other departments. It says, the powers of the government of the state of Texas shall, and that word means it's mandatory, be divided into 3 distinct departments, each of which shall be confided to a separate body of magistrate, to wit, those which are legislative to one, those which are executive to another, and those which are judicial to another. And no person or collection of persons, being of one of those departments, shall exercise any power properly attached to either of the others, except in the instance herein expressly permitted. And this section it's not in the Bill of Rights section of the Texas Constitution, but it's under the frame of government portion. Texas Government Code example. So this is a statutory code. It's Title II, Judicial Branch, Subtitle G, Attorneys, Chapter 81, State Bar, Subchapter B, Administrative Provision. So notice it's under the Judicial Branch. Section 8111, General Powers. The State Bar is a public corporation and an administrative agency of the Judicial Department of Government. This chapter is in aid of the judicial department's powers under the Constitution to regulate the practice of law and not to the exclusion of these powers. Section C, the Supreme Court of Texas, on behalf of the Judicial Department, shall exercise administrative control over the state bar under this chapter. And this was a statute enacted in 1987. Lawyers required to join the Bar Association. Many states require lawyers to join the Bar Association and may be under judiciary control. Here's an example from the Texas statute under their government code, which is Title II, Judicial Branch, Subtitle G, Attorneys, Chapter 81, State Bar. This is Section 81.051, Bar Membership Required. The state bar is composed of those persons licensed to practice law in the state. Bar members are subject to this chapter and to the rules adopted by the Supreme Court. Section B, each person licensed to practice law in the state shall, that's mandatory, not later than the 10th day after the person's admission to practice, enroll in the state bar by registering with the clerk of the Supreme Court. So you have attorneys who are considered officers of the court under the judicial branch, and they are also mandated in this state to be a member of the Bar Association. Acts contrary to the Constitution are void. This is taken from the Federalist paper number 78. Hamilton is the author. There is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. To deny this would be to affirm that the deputy is greater than his principal, that the servant is above his master, that the representatives of the people are superior to the people themselves, that men acting by virtue of powers may do not only what their powers do not authorize, but what they forbid. Constitutions are fundamental law. So these are excerpts taken from the Federalist paper number 78. A constitution is, in fact, and must be regarded by the judges as a fundamental law. And fundamental means the basis, the foundation. It is not otherwise to be supposed that the constitutions could intend to enable the representatives of the people to substitute their will to that of their constituents. The Constitution ought to be preferred to the statute, the intention of the people to the intention of their agents. Nor does this conclusion by any means suppose a superiority of the judicial to the legislative power. It only supposes that the power of the people is superior to both. Legislative power. So this is taken from the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. Let's see what it says about legislative. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. And legislation means the act of giving or enacting laws, the power to make laws, the act of legislating, preparation and enactment of laws, the making of laws by express decree. Notice the judiciary is not part of the power to make laws or the preparation and enacting of laws. So here's an example from a state regarding what it stated on the legislative department. Texas Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, Senate and House of Representatives. The legislative power of this state shall be vested in a Senate and House of Representatives, which together shall be styled the legislature of the state of Texas. Checks and balances. Congress has the sole power to impeach judges for bad conduct. However, if the judicial branch oversees the licensing and control of attorneys, would a legislature that is also an attorney vote to impeach one regulating their licensing? How can they be impartial to be a proper check and balance? The judiciary has no authority to write laws. Can one under the control of the judicial branch be allowed to write laws or participate in the process? Conflict of interest. We have congressmen that are lawyers, connected to the Bar Association and regulated by the judicial branch. Do you see a conflict of interest here and a violation of our Constitution's separation of powers? When in court, the lawyer you pay is an officer of the court, regulated by the court. How is this true and independent representation for you? Summation. Montesquieu, the Federalist Papers, and Constitutions reveal the three branches of government should be separate and independent. We have lawyers regulated and controlled by the judicial branch, participating in writing and enacting laws in the legislative branch. Check your state's laws regarding lawyers and the bar associations. We have a derailment, and course correction appears needed. The people have all political power, and it is the people who must insist on corrective action. Thank you for watching. Please pass this video on to others to help educate the people. Clicking the like button and leaving a comment helps to get this video out to more people. And if you're interested in all natural herbal remedies, please try YeshiasHerbalsPMA.com. She has a lot of products out there, and they are helping a lot of people. If you place an order, you may use True Tornado for free shipping on your first order. Thank you very much for listening, and please share this with others. God bless.